This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.
The Budget Office of Nigeria says that the country recorded a total revenue inflow of 20.84 trillion naira in 2024. The figure in question covers the fourth quarter of the 2024 budget implementation report, and it also highlights an increase in non-oil revenues compared to previous years. Joining the conversation is Inyobong Usen, Senior Program Coordinator at the International Budget Foundation. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us on the conversation.
Yeah, good morning, and thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure. Mr. Usen, what do you make of this particular report, just in terms of the numbers that are being reported?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I mean, the numbers put out by the Budget Office sort of reinforces what we've been hearing around and the improvement in the macro environment. You see that the two major reforms that happened in 2023 came to bear in 2024. As you know, with the petroleum subsidy that was, hemorrhaging our fiscal and the ways and means that government had used to finance expenditure the last 8 years before the coming of this administration was something that, after being brought to an end, reflected in the fiscals of the federal government and the country at large. And this could not only be seen with the fiscals of the federal government, but also with the fiscals of the state. So for indicators like your debt service revenue, for instance, there's been like a significant drop in that. We moved from somewhere within the region of 98-100%. In fact, at some point in 2002, our debt service to revenue was over 100%. But by year end 2024, it had dropped to about 60%. If you compare year on year, the interest on that ways and means, because ways and means was a very expensive way of financing our budget deficit. It was 3% plus MPR, making it one of the most expensive interest on deficit financing that we had. But when you compare year on year, see that the interest on ways and means dropped from about 1.6 trillion naira in 2023 to only about 3.5 billion naira in 2024. That's because what has accumulated over the 8 years has been securitized, and then the interest rate brought down to 9%.
Right.
And it's something that we paid over 40 years. If you also look at oil revenues as well, there was a significant increase in oil revenues, right, from about 2.5 trillion to about 6 trillion naira in 2024. But where we see very substantial gains are with non-oil revenue. And this, of course, is owing to a lot of the reforms that have been carried out by the FIRS between 2023 and now. And those reforms are supposed to continue into 2026 with the implementation of the new tax laws. So significant increases in company income tax, significant increases in value-added tax, excise duties, custom duties, and then stamp duties. And this has been the major driver of the sort of revenue growth that we've seen. But the main question that is on the mind or the lips of every Nigerian, right, is that how do we translate these macro gains into micro improvement in the lives of Nigerians?
Right.
And this is the question that government will have to answer at the end of the day.
So you're right in saying that there's a need to answer this particular question of just how it translates to the lives of common Nigerians. But I want to go back to this report, and the Budget Office actually admitting that despite this 20.898 trillion naira revenue recorded at the end of December 2024, it didn't quite meet up to the 2024 annual budget estimate. Now, it's lower by nearly 5 trillion naira. The exact figure is 4.89 trillion naira. I wonder if this is something that can be seen as a success, or it's simply a cautionary tale, perhaps for future budget estimates when it comes to just how much the government says that it can make in a year?
So if you compare it to previous year's performance, you could say that in terms of the shortfall, that it's an improvement from what used to happen in the past. But yes, there's a need for our budgets to become more credible. There's a need for us to be able to accurately and consistently determine and ascertain what our capacity to raise these revenues are, because this usually has a significant impact on the expenditure side of things. When you do not raise adequate revenues as projected, right, within a particular fiscal year, service delivery suffers, infrastructure suffers. You have to resort to borrowing, and depending on what your credit rating is, sometimes that borrowing might come very expensive. So we need, better reforms around revenue estimation, and so that we're able to raise enough revenues to adequately finance our expenditure. And of course, cash management is also one area where a lot of reforms are needed. But if you look at the capital budget implementation side of things, you would see that quite a number of MDAs were not able to utilize the releases made to them. And this usually happens for a number of reasons. If you look at the Ministry of Works, for instance, that a number of their projects are seasonal. So during the rainy season, construction sort of stops. And so if the revenues are not available to the Ministry for Works or the other MPs under it to be able to carry on the construction of roads, bridges, and other works projects during the dry season, and then the money becomes available when it's the rainy season, that money becomes useless. And then by the law, by the 31st of December, before midnight, all revenues unused have to be returned back to Treasury. Detail the Ministry of Agri. You have season for planting. Now, when the revenues are not available for government to intervene, provide farming inputs, farming equipment, fertilizers, when is the planting season, and the money comes maybe towards the end of the year, this money is almost useless in the hands of the ministry, and then that's money that needs to go back to Treasury.
Right.
So we also need better reforms around cash management, so that for very, very critical ministries of government that deliver critical infrastructure, critical services, right? Those revenues are available to them as at when due and as at when these interventions need to happen, so that we're able to equally improve utilization of those revenues at the end of the day.
So, Mr. Hussein, I'm hoping to quickly end on a positive in this conversation. How do you see this revenue performance actually informing or influencing investor confidence, especially when you consider that we do have reforms in the foreign exchange space, the trade and the petroleum sector?
Yeah, I think the stabilization of our foreign exchange regime is one that boosts confidence. At least businesses are able to plan. They know what to expect within, at least from the short to medium term. And I mean, over the last 4 or 5 months, we've seen that stability around between 1.5 and 600. And that stable environment is what businesses need to thrive. If you compare it to what happened, right, in the not too distant past, where businesses had deposited some of their dollars with the CBN, and then when it was time to reclaim those dollars, the value of the naira had gone down, and then they had to, sort of get back those dollars at a loss. I think at the moment, you still even have some companies that are still battling the CBN for certain releases that they had made to the CBN, right? That is still being contested at the moment. But with this stable exchange rate, businesses know what to expect. They know they can plan.
Right.
But then other, sort of factors that impact the business environment, right, is one that government still needs to work on. Whether you are taking to security, as the case may be, provision of very, very important infrastructure, roads, power, that businesses need to power their businesses and thrive. These are still areas that a lot of work is still required.
Right, Mr. Usen, thank you very much for your time and expertise on this conversation. Iniobong Usen is the Senior Program Coordinator at the International Budget Foundation, joining us to speak on the Budget Office of Nigeria, stating that Nigeria recorded a total revenue inflow of 20.8 trillion naira in 2024. This report also says that the recorded revenue is 4.89 trillion naira lower than what was estimated for the 2024 annual budget. You're still listening to Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos. We urge you to stay tuned. In a few short moments, we'll be turning to the world of entertainment. There's an artist by the name of Mustafa, and we'll be speaking with him right here on Entertainment Now. Do stay with us.
This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.